Hi, we have some incredible breaking news regarding the election for the recall of governor right now. We're going to be talking to the candidate himself, but let's get right to branding because we like to look professional. Okay, so I haven't even had time to make the banners for this. My apologies. We're here with John Drake. John Drake just called us over here and mentioned that he is now ranked, I think, 5th for the recall election, and that means you are now the top Democrat in the race. Is that correct, sir?
And in its own way, it is. It is, yes.
Okay. Okay, let me see if I can boost up the sound. 1 second, because I know people will ask. Give me a second. Yeah. I'm not going to spend time looking for that. Never mind. So we lost your light. Oh, there you go. Yes, California did a series of debates with recall candidates over the last couple months. And we've made a lot of connections with people who are in the Democratic Party, Republican Party, Green, Tea Party, Trump supporting, anti-Trump Republican, you name it. We've been fair to everybody. 99.9% of all the candidates said that we were exceptionally fair in our debates. And many of them have asked for advice and support, which we've given, not in an official capacity and not something that we really advertised because it was most important to us to show that we were fair in the debates. However, we made a lot of connects, a lot of party interest, and some of the people here are here to talk about it. We are not doing any more recall debates. We are now going to take the remaining days between now and the actual recall election date to do one-on-one interviews with the candidates. However, this is Yes California. And while we host the debates where we never mention the idea of California as a country, it was just about talking about them and their campaign and whatever they wanted to discuss. These are kind of under the condition that we will interview the candidate. They can say whatever they want, but we're going to ask them that one big question. What do you think about that idea? Now, we're not asking yet, but that's the condition. I know some of the other candidates are going to see this. We're going to offer this to them too. If you would like to be broadcast to the network of 160,000 multiple people across multiple social media platforms and mass email who are independent-minded or at least believe we can have a discussion, as long as we can ask you your opinion on that one issue, and you can say, hey, I'm totally against it. I don't think it will happen. I think it's unrealistic. Fine. We just want to have a discussion. So if you're willing to have the discussion, we'll do an interview with you about everything else you want to talk about. And we're going to showcase that right now. So I just needed to knock that out. That's housekeeping. This is available for all of the candidates. Let's go right to why you are watching right now. John Drake, what happened? Tell us, please.
So it's actually quite amazing. Out of nowhere, I am now in the top 5 placeholders. I was considering myself as the second most popular Democrat on the ticket because of Kevin Paffrath obviously being on the top of the ticket. But it recently came out that now he's actually considering leaving the party and switching the party because Andrew Yang has decided to create a third party. He's going to launch it next month, and Kevin Paffrath has decided that he's disillusioned with the Democratic Party and he wants to join it. And frankly enough, I never thought he was a Democrat to begin with because he endorsed Larry Elder over Gavin Newsom. All of us Democrats, at least the vast majority of us, are united behind Gavin Newsom because anyone is better than Larry Elder. And there's also many people who say, oh, I love Larry Elder and Kevin Paffrath. Well, if you're loving Larry Elder and Kevin Paffrath, then you're not a Democrat because Larry Elder is the exact opposite of what we are pushing for in a progressive society like California. And so, honestly, with the news coming out that he's saying that he's considering helping Andrew Yang form that third party, that essentially puts me as the front runner on the Democratic ticket, because I am the highest second polling Democrat on the ticket. So I think it's amazing. I think it's so awesome. And to think I got here with zero funding, zero media coverage except from Yes California and a few other local newspapers that decided to reach out to me because I was young and unique. And I didn't even have an official campaign team until Monday. So being able to achieve all of this is so extraordinary and significant in the modern age. So I'm very happy to be here. I am extremely proud that you decided to answer my request and do this interview. You're the only one I knew. So thank you so much.
I'm just typing this up for everybody to see.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're talking about is John Drake moved from almost zero, no offense, brother, to the second-ranked Democrat after Paffrath, which means that if you are a Democrat and you are going to vote on a replacement for Newsom, if you're concerned that the threshold for it to qualify and for him to be removed would actually pass, so over half of Californians vote for question one. If that happens, if you're worried about that, you're looking for an insurance policy, that means Democrats. And so John is now saying that he moved from almost total obscurity and used the Yes California debate system. And now he's moved up to the second ranked one after Paffrath. And now Paffrath has said he's no longer really a Democrat. He's disillusioned with the party. He wants to leave the party. Well, if you're a Democrat, you don't want to vote for somebody who says, I don't really want to be in the party and I'm disillusioned with the party. And you're certainly not with someone who says that about the party right before election. You don't do that. So Paffrath kind of said, I'm not a real Democrat now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Am I getting this wrong? Tell me
No,
what I'm
no. You're 100% correct. So Kevin Paffrath actually went out of his way to endorse Larry Elder over Gavin Newsom in case the recall did happen. And because of that, he went out in public and said that he was in favor of the recall. Jacqueline McGowan, Holly Beatty, me, and many of the other Democrats who are running as an insurance option because we don't want Newsom to be recalled. Kevin Paffrath has taken the yes position, and he wonders why he's being so treated by the DNC. Well, he was blacklisted because he's shown that he's not willing to fall behind the party for the greater good and keep an absolute maniac out of the reins of power, someone who doesn't even represent what the vast majority of Californians want, just a slim majority. When we say it's a Republican recall, that's exactly what it is. We have Democrats running, not because we want to get rid of them, but because we want to keep Larry Elder out, because we want to make sure Larry Elder has as much competition against him as possible. And of the top 10 polling candidates, from the last one I read, 7 of them are Democrats. So Democrats still have quite a strong hold on the party and on the election. I may be wrong on that because I'm thinking back to an earlier poll, and if I'm wrong, feel free to call me out. I'm totally 100% down to do that, and I will retract that statement. But for the most part, Democrats have come out in force. They've come out and shown that they are still willing to support our governor because, again, anything is better than Larry Elder.
And what is the poll that
it's from Survey USA, San Diego Tribune.
I got it.
Yeah,
I got it. 1 second. Hold on, everybody. We're going to show you the whole thing. Give me a second here. I don't know why that did that. Give me 1 second here. I see it. Okay. This reminds me of the... Okay, here we go. 1 second. All right, we're going to share screen. John, tell me if this doesn't come through. Here we go.
Oh.
Is this showing up? This should be...
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
email John Drake. Meet Kevin Paffrath. That's Kevin Paffrath. Good news, Andrew Yang. I'd love to be involved. I've grown very disillusioned with the Democratic Party. So that's apparently now true. This is on September 9th, 2:54 p.m. That is Kevin Paffrath, a Democrat, criticizing his own party, saying he wants to leave the party, and doing that right before he's asking voters to vote for him as a Democrat. in a state where Democrats are 60+% of the voters. So standard Democrat political thinking is you don't vote for somebody who trashes the party.
100%.
I mean, that's not rocket science. That's the way it goes. So here's the other poll. This is from San Diego Union Tribune. 930 likely voters, and people who actually voted. That's pretty good. Usually you want 1,500, but 930, and these are likely. So that's very good, especially given the election a few days away. Who would you pick? Here's Larry Elder, 29%. There it is. Larry Elder, 29%. Kevin Paffrath at 9% as a Dem, but now he's saying he's not a Dem. John Cox, a Republican, at 8%. Kevin Faulkner, at Republican, at 6%. And then here we go. John Drake at 4%, just above Holly Beatty, Jacqueline McGowan. So it looks like you, Holly Beatty, and Jacqueline McGowan are all people who participated in the Yes California debates. Did really well as Democrats, raising their profile. Am I getting this wrong, John?
No, you're 100%
what's going on
accurate.
here? This is right.
No, you're 100% accurate. And you know why? It's because people have seen through the BS of the mainstream media who are only covering the top multimillionaire candidates running. Every single person in that top list is a multimillionaire. And people are tired of them running our state because they've run this state into the ground. And they've rejected all calls, and they've rejected every single call of how the state is being run when compared to the youth. The youth want change, and these people are not providing it. They're providing either idle promises or talking points. There's no actual solutions. Kevin Paffrath's idea of building a pipeline to Louisiana to solve the drought crisis is a stupid one. I'm kind about it because it's stupid. If we piss off one of those other states, what they can do, they can shut off their end and we lose that water. Instead of investing in things like desalination plants, instead of investing in things like seeding the clouds a whole lot more than we have been doing at a sparse amount rather than concentrated amount, we will be able to more effectively handle this drought and fight this drought than whatever Kevin is offering. Larry Elder hasn't even really addressed the drought crisis except build more reservoirs. Why? When we don't even have enough water to fill the reservoirs we already have. And that's a 10-year solution. It takes about a decade for us to build these things because we need the permits. We need to be able to scope the land. We need to find out where we can do it. And so people listening to common sense ideas, people listening to what the young people want, people who want to be able to fight for the future with the future, they're the people who are getting behind us, behind Holly Beatty, behind Jacqueline McGowan, behind me, because they're so sick and tired of being used as talking points every 4 years.
I'm still, that's incredible. I'm still blown away that after Paffrath, all of the top Democrats in the world's 5th largest economy were all of the people who participated in almost all of the Yes California debates. What an incredible random chance coincidence.
Literally. It was so coincidental. I think people saw the top options and were like how I did when I initially decided to run. God, these people are garbage.
You know, let me write this out. I'm not writing out perfectly, but basically that's what the poll showed was McGowan, Beatty, and Drake, who all participated in the Yes California debates, beat out every other Democrat running other than Kevin Paffrath, who everybody knew that guy was a fake Democrat. So I'm not doing any more debates. We're doing one-on-ones. I'm going to give my real opinion. You know, Kevin Paffrath was a fake Democrat. So, and McGowan, the McGowan campaign pointed that out because his plan on homelessness was completely against the Democratic Party platform. So how are you running as a Democrat and your centerpiece of your campaign is the opposite of what your party you're claiming is doing?
Yeah. No, it's not even that. It's not even that. Kevin Paffrath, in my opinion, how I would identify him, is a corporocrat, meaning that he believes private industry should be able to run the government. And he's made that quite clear. He wants to privatize aspects of our government when the whole point of government is to remain public and open to public scrutiny. Well, if you have private businesses running aspects of the government, who are they held accountable to? No one but themselves. That's why we have a separation between big business and government. And so to be able to suggest something like that, to be able to make things less affordable and to have profitized motives behind the industries is not a smart way of handling the state. To add toll roads, the whole point of public roads are for people, or so people can travel freely throughout the state and not worry about trying to pay for roads and then food and medication. And the whole point of public roads is to remain free. Same thing with public education. We want to fight for affordable public education, affordable college, affordable housing, and adding more things like that, like tolls and fines to be able to do basic things in the state is not a good way to make the state more affordable. In fact, it makes it a lot more expensive, and I want to cut that.
Taxes are too high in California? Candidate Drake?
Taxes are not too high in California. They're just disproportionately affecting the poor. And time again, it's been shown that the rich in the state don't pay their fair share. The highest earners and the biggest corporations, they don't pay their fair share. Who gets taxed the most percentage through percentage? Small businesses and small business owners and the lower income individuals of this state. Who gets off scot-free for 3 years with no income taxes, not just on the California state level, but on the federal level? Large corporations and the richest and highest earners in this country and in this state. And so I'm honestly, frankly, sick and tired of these people taking advantage of lower income individuals and having people like multimillionaires like Kevin Paffrath, Larry Elder, who are going to prioritize their profits and their bottom dollar over the general population is not a good way to solve that. We need someone who's currently living in the fray of all these struggles, someone who is from a low income family, someone who experiences these struggles each and every day. I'm a student. I'm struggling with trying to afford not just rent, but education and even sometimes healthcare. Because as a student, I'm working a minimum wage job. I also do other jobs on the side in order to be able to make this money. My family, when they were living here, and they left during the Exodus because it became too expensive to live here. Because it became too expensive to live here. When they were still here, they sometimes had to decide, am I going to be able to afford John's medication this month? Or are we going to have to pay this bill? Or are we going to have to pay for this sort of food? And it's a real struggle Californians are facing every single day. And Kevin Paffrath and these other multimillionaires are not prepared to be able to give up some of their money for the greater good.
I saw personally where newspapers were calling the candidates and saying, hey, would you like to buy ad space?
Yeah.
And yeah, right. And then initially you're like, oh, why are you asking me? And then they go, well, how come certain newspapers cover certain candidates very well, like Packard? And how come he was able to come out of nowhere? And how come he got to have editorials and articles and interviews? And then I never put it together until many candidates were reporting how they kept getting these phone calls from newspapers and news channel stations on TV and going, hey, just asking, do you want to buy ad space, say $30,000 to $50,000 worth? And I was like, oh, that's how someone with millions of dollars can move ahead and get covered and then say it's the will of the mass public. They just want to see me. I'm interesting. That's why I'm covered, when in reality it is connections and basically donations to newspapers and media sites directly and giving, preferential coverage, or at least covered at all. As you just said, many of you didn't get any coverage.
No. And if we did get coverage, it was via our local news sources because they were excited someone was representing them. And that's been the biggest problem. When I paid the filing fee, I think it was $4,250 in the filing fee. That made that I thought that was expensive. That I was okay with doing that. But then when it came time for the voter information guide, when we had already gone through all these other hoops of trying to pay for this and that and trying to get things on deadlines, it was then $25 a word in order to get your message out. By that point, because we had gone through all these other hurdles, we should have been given an equal opportunity to be able to spread our message throughout the state and we didn't, because again, the system favors the rich and powerful and the well-connected. They don't care about average people trying to run and represent other average people. They want elitists to further their own positions and their own stake in society and become more powerful. They don't care about us, and I'm frankly sick and tired of it. We see this happen every 4 years, right? We saw this, and we've talked about this in the debate before when Holly Beatty was here, that every 4 years we talk about certain issues and then they disappear for 3 years. And then when election cycles come back around, we talk about it again. So in 2012, we talked about Black Lives Matter. And then from 13 through 16, we didn't talk about it until it was election season. Same thing happened from 17 all the way through 2020. Where was Black Lives Matter until George Floyd happened? It's not like police brutality stopped existing for those 3 years. It was just that it wasn't politically expedient to be able to rail on these issues. And young people are also being used. We're always talking about, let's fight for the future. And then next thing you know, the future gets abandoned until election season. And we're so sick and tired of it. We're so sick and tired of being used for racial and economic justice when you're not actually fighting for it. Young people want real change. We want to be included in the conversation. And these multi-millionaire elitists in the Capitol don't give a good goddamn about any of us. And we're so sick and tired of it. When we talk about racial justice, when we talk about environmental justice, social justice, any of these issues, when we talk about them, we're not talking about them as a general apparatus of discussion. We want real change. We want to be able to fight for these things and change the system for the better, because it's not working for us. We're tired of being used as political points, and we want that change, and we're not getting it. And so don't be shocked when young people like me come out here and just absolutely mop the floor with people like Kevin Kiley, who's an assemblyman who did worse than I did. Because again, these people, they know how to play the political game. They know how to use the talking points, but they don't know what it's like to actually struggle with these issues. People like Kevin Paffrath, what I get a lot is, well, he was once poor. He totally understands the middle class because he came from it, and then he built that wealth. The biggest problem we see with many people in American society is that when they come from the ghetto, or they come from a low income area, and they become rich, they don't oftentimes, especially if they get into politics, they do not actually make it easier for lower income individuals to move up in society financially. They make it harder. Why? Because the American system is built on, you make money, then you keep it at all costs. That means that you keep others down so they're not a threat to your dollar. And we've seen that with him. You think a real estate mogul from Southern California is going to risk his bottom dollar for things like statewide rent control, land value tax? No, he's not going to do that. He's not going to risk any of that, because it will affect his bottom dollar. And the American dream is, how I said on Twitter, it's, I can get rich, but you can't. I can keep my money and you can keep spending it in order to basically pay for your basic necessities, while I get to thrive off your hard work. That's been the American dream for over 80 years, and it's just getting worse.
And you're saying that many of the candidates who were able to run, Jenner, Elder, Cox, Paffrath, I think all the top 5, they were millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were able to privately fund this effort. And if you're not a millionaire, it's, as we just explained, at least in one example or one exemplification, it's very difficult to participate. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, extremely difficult to participate, because it's an uneven playing field. Even after you go through all the necessary hoops, like filing fees, the minute it comes to actually spreading your message on a public platform from the government that you submit to the government, you still have to pay each and every step of the way. I paid $525 for my statement, my small blurb. You want to know why people like Adam Papagan put "love you," or Dan Kapelovitz put
"Can you dig it?"
Yeah, can you dig it? It's because it was $25 a word, and we didn't want to leave it blank, because then people would still think that we're a joke. And that's the biggest problem, is that we think if you have money in this state, you're somehow better than the rest of us, when that's not the case. In fact, most people who have millions of dollars in this state, they can walk down the street past homeless people and think that somehow they're that somehow they're better than them, all because they were either given a lucky situation or because they were born into it. And honestly, I'm so sick and tired of it. I am so sick and tired of it. Housing is becoming more expensive. A minimum wage job nowadays, you can work 3 minimum wage jobs and not be able to meet your basic rent. While back when wages remained when wages were dependent on the inflation rates, you could work at a gas station for minimum wage 6 days a week and still afford a basic place to live, even a house if you've got a second job. And nowadays, you just can't. The average price of a house is $850,000, and wages have not kept up with inflation. And so I am so tired of just talking points. I'm so tired of, we will do this when you're not going to actually do anything. And having someone in the governor's office being like, you know what, you're full of crap. You're not going to do anything. You're taking bribes. You're taking dark money. You don't care about the people. And having someone call them out on that, and especially having the ability to call them out on live television, that's another thing. That can change the whole course of the state.
Well, can I ask you a tough question?
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Newsom's a millionaire.
Yeah.
Democrats have been in basically unified control for the last decade. All the problems you described are therefore at least mostly their fault, and they've been under the leadership of another millionaire.
Yeah.
Are you saying that they too fall upon the criticism you just gave the other candidates?
100%, because it comes from the mindset of having wealth. So I think Gavin Newsom is a nice guy. I think he's a good guy, but he's a terrible politician. And what I mean by that is that, again, like every single governor of the past 50 years who have all been multimillionaires, it's always rules for thee and not for me. When he shut down public schools and made kids not be able to attend in-class learning, his kids continue to go to their private schools in in-person learning. When he shut down thousands of small businesses, he still continued to go to large gathering events at the French laundromat, and he apologized for it. And I can accept the apology because I know he was sincere about it. The problem is that he still did it in the first place, and that's what we're dealing with. Is that people are going in with a mindset that, oh, because it doesn't affect me, I can do it, and you have to follow what I say. Every single policy I support will not just affect you guys, it's going to affect me as well, because I'm from that situation and I'm going to be going back into that situation. I'm so sick and tired, and I keep saying that, I'm so sick and tired, but I'm genuinely pissed off that people are going into these into these positions of power and abusing it because they're trying to either politically or financially gain from it, when the whole point of public service is to serve the public and be a representative of that public. And that means by the laws you implement, the mandates that you implement, you also follow. You don't break them.
Well, can I ask you another tough question?
Yes.
So Dan Kopelovitz is a lawyer. He promoted himself as a lawyer. Jackie McGowan was a lobbyist, or at least worked on behalf of the marijuana industry and promoted herself as that. David Bramante did real estate. Kevin Paffrath did real estate. There's a couple different candidates who came in with their vocation easily on their chest. And running for office may hurt them, but it also could help boost their name. It seems like a lot of people are potentially running for office only to line their own pockets. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that many of the people with tons of money behind them are going in there because they have the mindset that nothing can touch them because they're in that position of power. Gavin Newsom, he was in a position of power before he became governor, and while he's governor, it's I guess boosted his ego even more, so that he doesn't think that the rules unilaterally apply to him. Because again, if I was in his position and I shut down businesses and I said, oh, I can't, you guys can't go here, I'm not going to go there. Because the point of being a governor is to represent and be an example to your people. And because these people have a lot of money, they feel like that these laws don't apply to them. I mean, there's a great example that like many rich people in Los Angeles, like from the Beverly Hills area, will park in no parking zones, and then get fined for it. But it's basically just like the price that you pay to park in a non-parking area. They don't care. It's the mindset, and so I think people like Jackie McGowan, people like Dan Kapelovitz, people who come in with different vocations like lawyers, small business cannabis lobbyist, advisor, whatever her title is. I think the intention is behind them, and that the intention to genuinely be good people and try and represent the state the best they can without personal motivation. I think they have it. I just think that they're single issue that they're single issue candidates. I mean, I get the cannabis industry is treated terribly, but to run an entire campaign on the cannabis issue is not an effective way to run a campaign, because there's more issues that we have to deal with. For me, it's all about the future. When we discuss the future, we have to include the future. We have to include young people into it, because it's going to affect us. And so while my main points are affordable housing, education, and healthcare, it's really an entire array of different ideas that come in and try and prevent a terrible future for not just me, but the generation after me, and even millennials. We were all promised a future that if we worked hard enough, if we struggled, if we strived to be what we wanted to do, if we strived to do what we wanted to do, we could achieve it. Well, it was a lie. We were given a lie, and so I want to be able to provide Californians and the future of California the dream they were promised. I want to be able to give it back to them, because if all we're doing every single day of our lives is slaving away, then what's the whole point in living, right? If we work to be able to fall into this regressive cycle of just trying to afford the place to live, afford food, and then go back to work because we're afraid of losing this other stuff, that's not living life. That's living
Survival.
It's just survival. And then there's some people who have just fallen out of that cycle of survival, and now it's just like, what do I have to lose? And it's a lot of these homeless individuals who is like, well, I have nothing to lose. I don't care if I hurt you. I don't care if I steal from you, because it's nothing left for them, because society has decided to leave them behind. And my plans bring them back into society. My plans prevent people from falling so far into that there is no plan of no return. All my plans aim to fix the future, and we include the future in that conversation. We don't just come up with ideas because they sound good. We come up with ideas because we genuinely care.
What is your website, and how can people find out more about you to study these
plans? So my website is johnrdrake.com, and you can find my issues under the issue tab, obviously. But if you want more in-depth solutions, you can go to the FAQ section, where people ask me questions of how will I do this, or sort of thing, and I go into in-depth answers to in the FAQs. So feel free to go check it out.
That's John Drake. Let's show you the site. JohnDrake.com. Meet candidate John Drake. There he is. That is not a current photo of you.
No, that was my high school.
Okay. There's the issues page: public education, homelessness, abortion, LGBTQIAP+.
Yes.
Climate change and the environment, guns, COVID. And for John's personal views, visit the frequently asked questions section. You can find out right here. Affordable housing, affordable education, affordable healthcare. What do we mean by social justice and equity? Housing and homelessness, taxes, COVID relief, education, LGBTQIAP+. So it's all there on the site. You can find it all. John, were you, let me ask you though, you're a Democrat, you're conceivably the top ranked Democrat now You have said, hey, I don't think Newsom should be removed, but just in case the vote threshold for question 1 is achieved, consider me the vote for question 2. Let's not have Larry Elder, or basically, I think what you're calling him is a dino, Democrat name only, and one of the Kevins. The question, though, is that the governor himself and the California Democratic Party have framed this as nobody has really any reason to be upset. The guy was doing the best he could, and just the tough times. And yet, I just heard you talk about legitimate concerns that I hear, frankly, 48% of Californians, and some conservatives, but 25% of California voted for Trump. 48% of Californians said, according to one recent poll, they'd vote for the recall. So that's 2 times the number of Trump supporters. That's impossible. There's a lot of people who are not Trump supporters and yet are upset about this. I heard you list the French Laundry. I heard you list rules for thee, but not for me. Do conservatives and the non-conservatives that go up to basically half within the margin of error of California have reason to be upset? Do you understand why there is a recall?
Yeah, I understand why there is a recall, and we definitely do have a reason to be upset. I think everyone, I don't think everyone who votes no on the recall likes loves Gavin Newsom and his policies. I think we can all get behind that. He's a good guy. He has a good heart. But I think we do recognize that that there are problems that are not being solved when we were investing in fighting wildfires and fighting homelessness rather than preventing them. Then I think people do understand that we're going about these issues all wrong. I would say that from the Republicans I've talked to, that I've had interactions with, we have a lot of the same concerns. We just have completely different ways about going out and solving them. Right. I want to solve them through government social welfare programs and government action to try and solve these issues. Many of these people would rather prefer private solutions and community solutions that are spearheaded by private small businesses. I don't think that's going to work. If that were the case, then they would have done it a long time ago. But so I think that it's just simply going out too far. And assuming too much that these private companies are willing to do that. I mean, if churches were willing to house homeless people, then we would see a huge decrease in the homeless population. But they're not. Many of these churches just don't have the infrastructure to do it, and a lot of these private companies don't have the motivation to be able to feed these people. They would rather than be begging on the street. So for me, I see it's government's duty and imperative to not only ensure public safety and public health, but it's also public welfare. And welfare means housing. Welfare means education. Welfare means healthcare. And so I push for things like that. I push for easier access. Now, if people want private solutions, if they want to go about things through private solutions, like let's say you want private healthcare, then go ahead, have it. But I'm not going to then subject the entire state of people who can't afford private health insurance to that standard. I'm going to allow there to be a public option because it's necessary that these must exist. And I will say again that the Democratic Party is also responsible for many of the issues going on in the state because, again, they have addressed them through preventative measures like been asking them to. They're addressing them more as a PR situation. When we talk about climate change, we fight it through PR rather than actual solutions. If we're fighting to ban plastic straws and plastic bags, that's good and all. I get it. But it doesn't solve the issue of climate change. Because when we have an electrical grid that is reliant on coal and oil to produce electricity 80% of the time, banning things like plastic straws and plastic bags or gas-powered cars that only produce 0.5% of the emissions they did back in the 1950s doesn't solve climate change. It doesn't fight it in any sense of the capacity. It's PR. It gives you a nice habitat, a nice clean place to live. But your close environment is not the global climate that we're trying to fix. And so,
did you support Governor Brown when he basically refused to follow federal directives and leadership under President Trump and said, we're going to do our own climate change program, no matter what the federal government says, and, quote, launch our own damn satellite?
I agree that, well, with that specific thing, I don't know what Jerry Brown's solution to climate justice was in that, but for the most part, under the Trump administration, a lot of EPA guidelines were rolled back. A lot of that sort of issue, a lot of those issues sort of came where the environment was getting greener, is actually getting worse. So I would actually say that I would support Jerry Brown in that we're fighting for greener Earth. But again, many of this stuff was PR related. So like we shut down our nuclear power plants, we shut down our desalination plants. Why? Nuclear power is the cleanest, most renewable, and cheapest form of energy we can produce. Yes, there's the runoff situation that we have to deal with nuclear cleanup, but Japan's been dealing with that for over 40 years, and they've been quite successful at it. It's not like we can't ask them, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Can we borrow your plans?" When talking about desalination, countries around the world also do it, and if we're concerned that it's expensive, fighting a drought rather than preventing a drought is more expensive than just producing these desalination plants, creating that water, that drinkable water, and spreading it to all Californians. That's much cheaper than doing whatever it is we're trying to do with extra fires that pop up because we have too dry of land. So honestly, again, a lot of how I've been saying, a lot of our environmental fights against climate change, they're PR. They're purely public relations. Because if we truly cared about this environment, we would take risks like with nuclear power, which is proven to be clean. Yes, there was a Fukushima reactor melted. But you know what happened? They rebuilt, and people weren't afraid of it. You know why? Because they understand that the long-term effects of those are much better than the short-term consequences. Because you can take a bad situation and make it good, but you can't take a bit. But I would be hard pressed to find someone who wants to take a good situation and make it terrible. And that's what we've done in California with this whole PR policy on environmental regulation.
Let me take a second to remind everybody what the development was here. Want to do a shared screen. Oops. Okay, so this is the vote. This came out recently, around 2 o'clock this afternoon, and John contacted Yes California to get this out because we have a network independent from mainstream, and we cover our own issues that we think are important for Californians to discuss. It shows Larry Elder at 29%, Kevin Pathrath 9%, John Cox 8%, Kevin Faulkner 6%, John Drake 4%. And if you consider that Kevin Pathrath just criticized and said he did not want to become a Democrat days before the election, meaning he's not a real Democrat, at least in traditional political views, that makes John Drake the top Democrat running for the recall election. By the way, here's John Drake, Holly Beatty, Jacqueline McGowan, all of whom participated in the Yes California debates. Daniel Watts also participated. Joel Ventresca also participated. Patrick Kilpatrick did. But here's what's interesting. Brandon Ross did too, but Kevin Kiley kept turning us down. I talked to him personally. I talked to his staff, kept turning us down. And so here's Kevin Kiley. He did not want to participate in the Yes California debates. And the next 4 people above him all did. Funny how that worked out. What do you think that means, John Drake, that Kevin Kiley, rising star, refused to participate in any of the Yes California debates, and the top 4 people above him participated in multiple Yes California debates? What's that, sir?
It's very simple. Again, it's the whole mindset that I'm too good, because he was sort of pushed by the mainstream media that, oh, he could be the Marco Rubio of California, and so
Sure.
and so he sort of got that idea in his head that, oh yeah, that's right, I'm better, I don't need to associate myself with these wannabes. And again, that's the same situation we've been dealing with the governments of the past 50 years, like what I've been saying. that they have this weird mindset that somehow they're better than everyone else, when that's simply not the case. We're all in this struggle together. We're all in this struggle to try and build a better world, to try and live. And so to ignore any person who reaches out to me, big or small, I will answer to them personally, if I can, at that moment, because I care about getting equal representation to every single person. I mean, when you guys reached out to me, it was the first time some big, I guess, organization reached out to me. But even after this, even after I've gone so far up in the polls, I'm still doing small podcasts. I'm still doing up and coming news organizations. Why? Because it's important to give these people platforms. It's important to give people with good intentions platforms to be able to build and spread that good message of positivity and hope. If we're not doing that, we're failing Californians. If we're not doing that, what's the whole point in trying to build a better world? What's the whole point in trying to fight for things like justice if we're not willing to give everyone a voice? And by rejecting news organizations that are not mainstream, what you do is that you feed into that same cycle of just ignorance and elitism that exists.
I got to ask you, you were hanging out with another Democrat. People in the same party routinely hang out with each other. By the way, to back up what you said about Kevin Kiley, I remember seeing the video where Diego Martinez, another Republican, went up to him and tried to shake his hand, and he just looked at him and walked away. And I thought that was not cool. And especially as a Latino, I thought that bothered me. But then also as a human being, and then also as a fellow political candidate. I know this is the Republican Party and you're running against them, but I just thought, interesting that he would do that. Wouldn't even shake his hand. So getting to what you're talking about, I have to ask you about something, though. You were hanging out with another Democrat. This Democrat went to the Elder event in Lancaster and got video of being the only Democrat to get into Elder, the top-ranked Republicans thing, and actually confront him. Nobody's even able to do that. The man is able to control everything, and whoever gets to interact with him. So there's one Democrat who did it, and that was Kenneth McGowan. She did a video where she was accosted. You talked to her about that because, hey, women should not be harassed by a bunch of armed men. Although they should, it's okay to escort people out of buildings, now, of course. And then your account, something really weird happened with your account that never happened before. Could you tell the story? And I want to remind everybody, this is the top-ranked Democrat in the world's fifth largest economy, a population of 40 million people, talking about a woman being accosted by men in the year 2021 with a female Democrat. And what happened to you, sir, when you did that? Could you please explain? And now his video went silent the moment I asked that question. Interesting. John, are you there? The second I asked that question, the video freezes? Okay. I mean, you can't. See, there it is. Y'all catch that? I mean, you can't make this up. I literally asked him about. So what happened was he was banned. So John Drake. What?
Okay. All right. I'm back. What happened? All right.
Oh, you don't know what happened either? I asked you what happened when you talked about how a woman was harassed by the Larry Elder's campaign or people who hosted the campaign or something. And you talked about this in the media, wouldn't cover it, and then you got banned on social media. And then when I asked you the question about that, your screen went blank and you got cut off. You literally cannot make this expletive up. I mean, this is ridiculous. The second I ask you about it, things get frozen. When the entire rest of the time, we've been on 49 minutes and 16 seconds, didn't happen. The second after I ask you that question, things go blank.
All right. So the question, okay. So I believe another question. So my TikTok, the video I made about that specifically, I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want this thing bitching out again. But what happened was that that video got taken down and banned my account for I think it was like 3 days, and it was absolutely mental. And I just want to say, even just aside from censorship, if that is censorship, I would say that the fact that you can feel entitled to basically have 15 men throw around a 100-pound woman who just wants to confront you about a debate, that's disgusting. That's terrible. But you know what, Larry Elder, it's not like he doesn't have a track record of not only treating women terribly, but also taking up terrible stances, like believing that slave owners should be able to get reparations because they lost their property. That property was human beings. All right, you didn't know about this? Did you not know about this?
When he said racism isn't real and sexism isn't real, I was done with him. So I stopped paying attention. Wow. It's the same thing with Trump. You say a couple things and I'm like, why am I paying attention to you anymore? Yeah. Like, you're going to say Hitler had some great ideas. I'm like, I'm not. I refuse to be shocked by these people after they reveal how much of a horrible human they exist as.
So, just seeing, first of all, as a woman running in this race, she's had like a very rough time. Just people have been treating her unfairly. People had been basically, they roughhoused her in a physical manner, but they also sort of didn't, I guess, give her the time and space because she was a woman, and sexism is a real issue that we're dealing with. But at the same time, also, it's not like I haven't been dealt my fair share of criticism either. I mean, I deal with homophobia straight out of the gate a lot, either through text messages, through phone calls, through private messages on Twitter or Instagram or even Facebook. Sometimes, and so the way that these right-wing people try and treat us is not only appalling, but it's kind of frustrating to know that it still exists in such a progressive state, and that these are the sorts of people who are sort of trying to take power back in the state again and trying to give a voice to those sorts of people. I mean, I went on Twitter and said, I will not legitimize right-wing platforms that espouse homophobia, sexism, or racism in any form. And I got criticized for it because I'm supposed to represent California and every Californian. but if I'm representing every Californian,
no.
Here's the issue. With that. If I'm representing every Californian, that means I'm giving them a right to be who they are. I support their basic civil rights, and that means I will criticize you for thinking that someone like me, someone like Jackie, Jacqueline McGowan, someone like Holly Beatty, anyone running, someone like Veronica Fimbres, who she and I are absolute great friends now. To think that she does not deserve, or that we do not deserve, basic civil rights, I'm not going to legitimize your platform, and I will never go out of my way to make you feel loved and accepted because you are an awful human being.
I don't think bigots are Californians. I don't think bigotry is a California value.
Bigotry does exist here, though.
Of course it exists here. I just think that that's not a California value. We have very clearly established this place as a place that's a home for everybody who's rejected from everywhere else. Like, that's who we are. It's been that way since the 60s. We've done this for about 70 years. We're not going to suddenly turn around and go, I don't know about immigrants. I don't know about LGBTQ. I can't say the whole acronym, but you get what I'm talking about. I don't know about Indian people walking down the street speaking their own language. Like, we're about that. It's not going to go away. So if that's your fantasy, you're like it'd be like as if you moved to America and said, I'm going to hope that one day Americans just don't like football and basketball. And I'll just what are you doing? That's clearly part of American culture. This is a ridiculous fantasy of yours. So go ahead and leave California. You're not a real Californian.
Yeah, no, I saw someone, I can't remember the exact comedian, but they said it would be like getting off of a plane in Hawaii and being like, what's up with all this Hawaiian crap? Like, you're expecting Americans to be, you're expecting Californians to submit to this ideology and these weird, Kevin dropped it. Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, sorry, I was reading the comments.
You already know about this. I just have to post the public comments.
Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, no, what people like Larry Elder are trying to do is that they're trying to take this small minority of Californians who are able to just get the threshold that they need to recall our governor and become and become this state that we are not. Imagine pushing pro-life or anti-choice, because that's what they are. They're anti-choice. They're not pro-life. They're going to cut every single welfare program that's meant to help single mothers. I can guarantee that. You know why? Because they believe pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. So they're anti-choice, pro-gun. They are anti public health care and education. These people want to take a progressive state and take it to the exact opposite. And by doing that, they not only threaten the stability of this state, but they also threaten the security of minorities in this state, because it's going to embolden hateful people.
Well, let me ask you though. You just said some people were upset with Newsom for legitimate reasons. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because they loved Donald Trump and the Republican Party. It was for certain reasons. And we're looking at 48% of Californians. Now, certainly some of those are in Trump supporters. And as I said, I could care less about bigots and discriminatory people. But there are people who don't ask me to explain it, okay, because I don't get it myself. They honestly believe Donald Trump is not a racist. I asked you don't ask me to explain it, okay?
Okay.
So I know one of them because he's married to my mother. All right. And my mom's Mexican and we eat chile, almost every time. And he voted for Trump for tax reasons. I have met other people who voted for Trump. And when I talk to them, they're not like, oh, white supremacy. Yeah, right. They're like, I liked his policy on taxes. I thought he was a clod otherwise. But, to pad my pocketbook, I voted for him. I do think it's fair for people to talk about fiscal excess. Taxes are difficult. Business climate is difficult here. And I think as governor, you should reach out to them. I want to be clear saying, screw the bigots. But there are some people who, are upset with Newsom because the business climate took a real hurt. I mean, do you see that? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, no. Again, I think that a lot of California bureaucracy, especially in business and regulations, they definitely target smaller businesses a lot more than they do corporations, because corporations have the ability to basically get around those requirements by being able to take advantage of certain loopholes, or they can just pay off people to not enforce it. It's not a difficult thing that they can do. But yeah, small businesses hurt in this state. They are 90% of our tax bracket. They produce the most in the revenue of this state, and we treat them like absolute garbage. We need to start holding corporations more accountable. If we're going to hold these small businesses accountable, we have to hold the big corporations in the state to the same degree, because that's what we're not doing. That we're simply not doing that. And my family, my dad was a small business owner, my mother was a small business owner, and they left because they couldn't afford to live here anymore.
So you get it. You get some of the concern about the business climate. You get some of the concern about the roughness of the recall. You're just saying, don't vote out Newsom. And if the threshold is here, I'm an insurance policy like the McGowan campaign, the Delegates campaign. But you do at least, and I think this is key, obviously you are social progressive. Obviously, you believe in a lot of the Democratic Party platform. But what I'm hearing from you is something we do not see from the governor, and we do not see from the Democrats, that, hey, folks, you were right to feel hurt by the clampdown. And hey, folks, it is tough to run a business here. We never hear your party say that, or the governor. Can you explain how you believe in those things, and yet this discrepancy here, sir?
So how like Newsom went off on this tirade a while back where he was like, everyone from outside is bitching about the state. We have a great state, and I agree, we have an amazing state. We're lucky to live here, but at the same time, we have this growing underclass of Americans living here. We have the highest, not just homeless population, but percentage of homeless people. So that's a huge issue we have to deal with. There's tons of people who are unable to afford the basic necessities. Under Gavin Newsom and his lockdowns, thousands lost their homes. Thousands became homeless. And by ignoring these problems, these fundamental issues that exist within our within our state, and try and pretend like we are living in the best state in the world. I just don't understand how you can be so disconnected from people. I mean, this is the same party that said, oh, don't vote for an insurance option on question number 2 because it's going to be Larry Elder anyway. Well, that's how you ensure it's going to be Larry Elder. That's my biggest issue. And so you have this huge disconnect of people just not taking things seriously because they're not living it. I mean, I push a lot on things like on social economics, especially because the state just doesn't care about lower income people because it's not built for lower income people. Lower income people build the state, but it's not built for us. Because again, like we talked about earlier, we're trying to survive. That's all we're trying to do. That's the baseline of the majority of Californians. Our businesses are not taken care of. Corporations are catered to because they can afford lobbyists. They can afford to be able to influence our politicians. But that's it.
Right. So this is Jason had helped point out why people should vote on question 2. He brought up things that were not what the Democratic Party was saying, and he got banned. John did a video with on his social media platform about candidate McGowan and exposing something that the media later on did admit happened in the Sacramento Bee, and he got banned. And so, folks, we're talking to the top-ranked Democrat in this race, given that Pathrath just admitted he's not a real Democrat, effectively. And this person is being banned from speaking the truth on social media. He is not a Republican. He is not giving what mainstream media would call conspiracy theories about QAnon or Trump. He talked about the way that an actual news event that the news later admitted happened, and he got banned, and he is the second-ranking Democrat. Do you see how bad this is?
I do.
I mean, this is, you know, if you didn't show up anywhere, this might be one thing. But when you're knocking out Democrats who are clearly not talking about conspiracy theory and they're talking about facts, and you're getting mysteriously banned, and I've seen other people at Yes California staff speak literally the truth, cited from literal California sites, and then get banned. And during this election, it's bad news for a functional electorate, for an informed population, and for a place that's able to actually operate as a real democracy. Very disturbing. Okay, well, John, any other comments before we get to the big question?
I would just say that I think when taking account into future solutions on how we can ensure a better California for everyone, we have to not just come up with arbitrary solutions. We need to include young people because they are our future. They know what they want from this state, and if we're not including them, we're not benefiting them.
Nice. I love the fact that you and Zaki and Armando Mondo were all in your 20s, basically, or pushing barely 30, and you were running. I just thought that was exceptional, given that you'll be around for another 30 to 50 years. And you're getting in the game early. That gives you some continuity and some experience. And all of you were decent people. And I like seeing decent human beings running in the race. And I hope that you stay in politics, because we need people who actually get it and don't have a heart of darkness running. And I think that's you and a few of the other people. And by the way, Zaki's a conservative. You're a liberal. I'm giving compliments to people regardless of party affiliation. I think, and it's just on the people that I met. Some of you are decent humans. And I really hope you as the youth stay, and we need more young people involved, more young people running. We need more young people not buying the garbage that you have to be older and experienced and have all this money to run. That's the problem, right, John?
Mm-hmm. That is a huge problem that we have to finally address. And by pushing someone in who doesn't have millions of dollars to their name, that sends an amazing message to not just people in California, but people around the country who are tired of being left behind by the standard politician.
Okay. Well, we just did an interview with candidate John Drake. This is available to all of the candidates. We're no longer doing debates. We'll be doing one-on-one with the candidates if they like to talk on one condition. Yes, California is about having a dialogue. We are not about pushing a particular answer. We're about telling Californians that it's rational, given everything that's been going on and 4 years of Trump, to start having a dialogue about what if things go really bad and we have to do it more on our own. We think after you saw the Iraq war fail, 9/11, then certainly the debacle in Afghanistan, Donald Trump winning the election in 2016, Americans almost voting him in for a second time in 2020, the January 6th coup, etc., the appointment of Kavanaugh in a super conservative Supreme Court like we've never seen in 60 years, that it's not irrational or crazy or insane for Californians to have a conversation about what if we have to rely on ourselves alone to protect our values. So we're going to ask a candidate now. Candidates are allowed to come on. We will talk to you about your campaign first, but we're going to ask the big question because that's where we're about. Now, you do not have to support the idea. You don't have to like it. You can argue vociferously and ferociously against it, and that's fine. All we want is the dialogue. So, Candidate Drake, do you support the idea of California as a nation, sir?
All right. So how I see it, because I'm first going to explain my position, right? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So how I see it is that the United States heavily relies on California. We subsidize 95% of red counties. Without the United States, the U.S. dollar would collapse, and the Chinese currency, as well as the euro, would surpass all other currencies, and that would also set precedent for the rest of the United States to break up and collapse. So California is so important to the United States, yet most of the red states in this country, like Gavin Newsom said, are bitching about this state. And they don't like us. They don't want us. They're always making jokes. Well, California should leave, but in reality, they are so dependent on California money. They are so dependent on who we are and what we provide for this country. And so by just having that negative relationship with California, always thinking that somehow they're better, that somehow Texas is better than California, even though they'd be in the same boat if California left. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. We can afford to handle ourselves and take care of ourselves. But when a country falls, when a country collapses and bunches of states break up, we saw that with Yugoslavia, that it creates disproportional poverty, not just in the countries that break up and choose to be self-sufficient and independent, but the neighbors around them also go broke, and then that creates an economic problem for the ones that thought that they could be self-sufficient. We see that with the United States and people coming into Mexico, that when a country is suffering from both economic and even political stability, that it translates into mass migrations, and then that creates overpopulations, and that creates resource depletion. So it is my current opinion that while we should be getting more independent, California independence as an idea of self-governance away from the United States, that currently should not be an issue that we focus on in California, because the effects of California leaving could leave California in a worse position than we are currently in. And we should be focusing on things like environment, like climate change. We should be focusing on things that fixes our poverty, education, and our healthcare. We should be focused on housing. We should be focused on energy creation that's green. So we have better things to worry about and more pressing things to worry about, but leaving and then creating a mass exodus of people from other, countries, which would be states, coming to California because we cause instability over there from a breakup, then I think that causes a lot more problems. And I think we should be focusing on how can we make our state better right now, and then worry about having this conversation.
So you're saying, hey, let's focus on fixing poverty, healthcare, energy creation that's climate change friendly. There's better things to worry about than leaving America, and we should focus on those here in California. Besides, if California left America, it would automatically cause a cascade of multiple states leaving, similar to Yugoslavia, which create a chaotic situation that lasts for decades. And California would have all that chaos right on its border as an independent state, and that would not be good.
Exactly.
Okay. I also thought I heard you say that the red states do hate California and
they 100% do.
Would vote for us to leave.
Yeah, and at that point, it's their. Then at that point, if their economy collapses and their I guess countries are now unstable, they did it to themselves, and we have no point in trying to accept those people coming into our country. So
if there was a vote in Congress and 26 red states or 40 red states said, you know what, we vote for you, California, to leave.
Yeah.
Is it okay for them to do that? Would you accept a vote by the
I take it. I take it.
So if they actually voted for that, you believe they have the constitutional right or legal right to do that?
Yeah.
All proper and peaceful and through the legal system, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And you think the votes are there in the South?
I think because of the whole Texas culture and being self-reliant and self-independent, they'd probably vote for it because it would give them an ability to be able to also then vote themselves out of the union as well. So I would say that the votes are there. But at that point, if the federal government, I guess, says we don't want California, well, why should California stay in an unfriendly relationship if they're not constitutionally bound to it? And if we are, like we currently are, because the Supreme Court ruled in the 1860s, states cannot leave the union, but it never ruled that the union cannot kick out states. So if the union decided to, I don't see why we should be staying in an unloving relationship if we can support ourselves.
Okay. All right. So nice. That's what we called peaceful, sensible divorce rather than a horrible marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, so we agree on a lot there. That the votes are there. Many states could allow us to go, and that it's right that if states choose to let California go, it's the right thing to let democracy follow that path.
But obviously, I will say this, though. If Californians, by a majority vote, say that we don't want to go, then the state of California should obviously make every effort possible to try and stay. I'm not, like, it shouldn't just be like a...
Sure. Yeah. Do you think it's okay for Californians to have a vote on if they want to stay in America, provided it's done through legal, proper channels?
I mean, the reason why I would say no is because there are, I mean, again, the Supreme Court decided that states cannot leave the union. But if you wanted to hold, I guess, like a survey, like, do you want to leave? Go ahead. It just gives like a good, it gives like a good idea of who wants to stay and who doesn't. But again, there's no legal way to try and leave the union without being kicked out.
Okay, and well, let's take that one on real quick. Let me just type in an essay.
Okay.
Okay, so now they're going to bar me for my own essay. Okay, 1 second.
No problem.
Very clever. Okay. So here is the thing. The Supreme Court did not say during the Civil War that secession is illegal. In fact, there was no ruling by the Supreme Court during the Civil War, and there was no actual legal documents signed on the topic of secession during the Civil War. Most Americans believe that to be true. What you just said, they believe that. But the only document signed during that time was the cessation of hostilities in the Appomattox place in like Virginia. That just said they're stopping fighting. Okay. So when we look at actual documents saying secession is illegal, there's only one document ever written in America that says you can't secede. And it was by the Supreme Court after the Civil War.
Mhm.
It was called Texas versus White. What it said was you can secede only through, quotes, consent of the states. You could not unilaterally secede,
Yeah.
and so therefore the South was wrong. But this one Supreme Court case said if you got consent, you could go. Let's take a look at that real quick. Hey, we're here to have a discussion, friendly conversation.
Yeah.
Here is Javier Becerra, another California Attorney General, and Kamala Harris, another California Attorney General, who all said in 1869, following the Civil War, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Texas versus White that the initial act of admitting a state to the Union was final. There was no place for reconsideration or revocation, the court said, except through revolution or through consent of the states. So not well known. But so given that, if there was a vote in California and it was legal and it was approved by the California Attorney Generals and a majority of Californians said, yes, we want out, and you're sitting governor, it's a legal vote, it's held through the proper channels, and a majority say we want out, would you respect that as governor? Would you respect the will of the people? All right, we'll wait a second.
Sorry,
Hey,
that was the weirdest thing, and this camera doesn't work, so
1 second here.
phone.
Can you hear me now, John?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Just barely. Can you speak up or?
Hello.
Yes.
All right.
We lost video, but we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, because this one doesn't have a camera on it. Sorry about that. Oh,
All
wait,
good. All good.
Wait. I have an iPad. Wait,
Okay.
that might actually be better.
I got to ask you to really speak up to the mic. It's or can you attempt to stream back in through the other application?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to do it through my iPad. Hopefully that works. Sorry, my phone.
All good. All good. Some technical issues. We're working through it. Hold on. Wait with us.
I swear to God, I wasn't listening up. Let's see. Another challenge. Sorry about this. All right, feel free to kick this account, I guess.
Or just speak into the mic really loud. We can do either one. Sorry, technical difficulties. We're trying to work it out right now. We are in a conversation with candidate John Drake. We just did an hour discussing his new revelation that he's the top-ranked Democrat in the election. New poll just came out. Also, that poll showed that all of the candidates that were interviewed by Yes California did better than the candidates who never showed up to our debates. Okay. Just turn that bad boy. All right. Sexy as hell. You make me question myself, sir. All right. Here we go. That's a joke. Focusing on fixing poverty, healthcare, energy creation that is green, better things to worry about than leaving America. Fair enough, but I would ask you two questions. Mm-hmm. You just said the red states are dependent on us. We give a lot of money to them. So if we're giving money to them, how do we fund all these things? Yeah. In fact, just real quick, there was a professor, F.H. Buckley, who worked for Donald Trump, and he wrote a book, American Secession, where he specifically named CalExit and Yes California. And he said if we were not subsidizing 25 states, we'd have an additional $100 billion and could automatically afford universal health care. Mm-hmm. How does this configure, sir?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, secession is definitely a thing you have to go through on the legal channels. If we can somehow get through it, I would 100% give the vote up to the people. And if they say, let's leave because we can fund all these things, then fine. I am so down to do it because I will be following the will of the people, and that's what the governor is supposed to do. We're supposed to represent what the people want. But in the time, but unless we're doing that sort of thing, unless we get asked to leave, essentially, to try and push ourselves leaving the union, I just don't see it as something that's going to work unless it's initially suggested. I mean, we could always ask, "Hey, how do you think this relationship is working?" But we don't have to. But we don't have to, or we can't just say we want to leave. We want to leave. We want to leave. We can always suggest it because, let's face it, the powers that be. Mitch McConnell knows that Kentucky would die without California. Even though he rails against things like Social Security, affordable housing and education, and healthcare, like expansive Medicare, he's not going to allow California to leave because his state is so reliant on public health care that it would be political suicide for him, even though his voters think that what he's fighting for is amazing. I would say that there are other things in the state that are being funded that we don't need to fund, especially with the current issues that we're dealing with. So the speed rail is already over $100 billion in debt. We've already paid $100 billion for the speed rail, right? There's 3 phases to it, and phase 1 isn't going to be completed until 2029. That's going to be over another $100 billion into this thing, where we can take that money over the course of these years and put it into things like affordable housing, put it into things like affordable healthcare, where we can take that money, where we could say we should have had this infrastructure 50 years ago. Now we're dealing with this huge issue that's more pressing and more dire to address, and we can solve that. And once we solve that, we by halting this funding of the speed rail that has to go through so many bureaucratic channels that it's going to be like nearly impossible to complete even in the set 2029 date. I would say that's our best solution, that we can hint that or we can set up the necessary foundations for us to become independent, but we cannot just leave. Our people voting on secession is not going to work. In fact, again, voting costs a lot of money. It'll be a more waste it'll be a bigger waste of money than first getting a suggestion. Maybe we don't want California in the union anymore. Maybe we don't want them helping us. So unless they initially initiate it, then I would say California has a duty to itself to try and solve these issues without just contemplating leaving. We can always suggest leaving. We can always push them to consider it, but we can't just leave.
So it's okay to suggest to red states to encourage us to leave, but
or we could threaten them. Or we
threaten them.
Yeah. So we could be like, look, we're funding you all this money. We're funding you all this money every single year. And each year you're bitching about us. Each year you're saying how much you hate California, how much we suck. What if we just stopped paying federal taxes? What would happen to you? Because here's the thing. While states are obligated to pay taxes, if the state doesn't go out and collect those taxes and doesn't enforce it, then what's the government going to do? Take over the state? Well, that would be that they would be doing exactly what the British did back in the 1700s, and then it turns into this whole other situation. Like, is revolution justified? And so again, I'm not suggesting it because it's more violent, but we can have our politicians be like, quit bitching, support the programs that we're telling you to support. Your state will be better off, and we can all save more money. And you can be more self-sufficient, and we can be more self-sufficient. We don't have to be bitching to one another about what's good, what's bad. Do you hate me? Do I hate you? We don't have to do that. If the red states would essentially just knock it off.
What if they never do that and they never listen? And things like climate change they deny for 10 years, and things like universal health care, when it's implemented and they get the benefits, they still say this is horrible and get rid of it. I mean, what if this is a group of people who they had health care and they threw it away. And then on climate change, they just denied it. And then on abortion, we went one way, now we're going backwards. And then on gay marriage, we went one way, now we're going backwards. What if this is a group of people that's never going to do what Californians think is right?
Yeah.
We'll take our money and will always hate us for the next 35 years. What would be your response then?
California, just because the federal government, just because we're in a union with other states that may suck, doesn't mean we cannot shape our future the way we want it to. What we can do is that we can implement constitutional reforms in the state of California that keeps up with our values. If we want to protect pro-choice amendments, we can put an amendment for pro-choice that specifically tackles it into our Constitution, and we can do it, especially with the legislation we have right now, with the legislature we have right now. It's not a difficult thing to do. We can fund our own sort of programs to be longer lasting, and if it comes down to it, we can just outright tell the federal government, you're treating us unfairly. You're giving all these other states a lot more precedent over us. And so certain taxes we're just not going to pay. If it comes down to a federal income tax, right? If it comes down to federal income tax and that money is not being used the way we want it to be used, even though we're subsidizing much of the education of these other states, I would just say, you know what? Then we're not going to enforce it. If people want to pay it, they can pay it. But we're not going to enforce that payment. In fact, I don't agree with the federal income tax. I wouldn't enforce people paying it, but California income taxes, I would enforce it because that goes directly to California and benefits California. Why should I care if Kentucky has education if they don't want to implement any of the education reforms we suggest that they implement? Okay, my priority is California. My priority is not Kentucky. I can give them the tools and the ideas that they can implement in order to achieve a better society, but I'm not going to at all 100% say that Kentucky is just as equal as California. Where do people go when they want opportunity? They don't go to Kentucky. They come to California. And so the best thing we can do is that we can make California the place people want to come, make it more influential, give ourselves more votes, give ourselves a higher population so we do have more power. If we take over, if we keep bringing in people who are open-minded, if we keep bringing in people who do have money but also willing to pay their fair share so that they can ensure everyone else here has a good life, then we should encourage that. But we should not be kowtowing to states that don't care about us, even though they rely on us. So that's my opinion on it.
So you're saying, hey, we give a lot of money to these states. They hate us. They use our money, and they don't really value the laws that we want. And as a way of forcing them to do what we think they should do, we should be able to withhold federal tax money, withhold the donations that we give to support the entire federal system in those 25 states.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because also because the federal government doesn't help us when we need it. I mean, keep in mind, the majority of wildfires happen on federal lands, and they don't pay for it. We pay for it. So why should we be giving them a fair share when they're not giving us a fair shake? I believe in consistency when it comes to government promises, when it comes to public policy. You have to have consistency. And so if you're going to demand if you're going to demand that my government pay federal taxes to subsidize these states that hate us, you better be paying my state a whole lot more, because we're giving out so much more and you're giving nothing back to us. You're giving all that money to red states that couldn't care less about us.
So the law regarding taxes is that federal taxes go through the Internal Revenue Service and California taxes go through the Franchise Tax Board. So they're two separate agencies.
Yeah.
We would have to encourage Californians to not pay their federal tax. The moment you do that, and the moment they do that, they have now committed a felony. And the federal government has the ability to arrest individuals. Do you think it's reasonable to get a population of 20 to 30 million people to risk a felony and imprisonment in order to push back in the manner you're suggesting?
Where are they going to imprison them? In my prison system? I'll just release them. I mean, like
They would go
here's
to
the thing, they can
separate
have-
federal prisons.
Oh, separate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you mean. Okay.
So what I'm asking
sorry.
you though is picture a couple. They're 50 years old. They got 2 kids, clean record,
Yeah.
and you're saying, hey, let's commit a felony. And in order
Oh,
to
no,
get the politics we want, I
Well,
am suggesting you risk imprisonment. Is that?
Well, I mean, well, I think if we get to that point, I would say, look, we're not going to enforce you paying federal taxes. If you want to pay it, go ahead. But you have to keep in mind that someone has to enforce this. Every law is always enforced by the end of the barrel of a gun. All right, and if it's not going to be the people within the communities, it's going to be the federal government, and they don't have enough of that to do it. They're not going to arrest 20 million people.
Okay. What if 20 million people don't want to commit a felony and don't want to risk imprisonment?
But they
And
don't
that
have
means
to.
that
They don't have to. They can fill out that form and they
sure.
don't have. If they want to keep.
But
running,
let's
they
say,
can.
yeah. So I'm just asking that if the idea of taking away federal tax money was removed as an option, and you cannot do that to influence 25 states because people would be terrified of facing federal imprisonment. What then option does California have to make America go in the direction that we would want if we can't threaten them with withholding funds?
Okay, we can't threaten them.
Got to pay them the money. They can still trash talk us, ignore all our laws. Got to pay them that money every year, though. Can't get out of it. What would we do then?
Well, now I'm in a bind. I honestly could not give you an answer 100% because I'm not a fan of secession at all. I think California would be much better in the Union. I've always believed that. I don't like the idea that California could be an independent nation just because I think I think the Union of the United States, California, is so strong together. I would still say we should be working it out. We should say,
Fair enough.
all the other things I've said are like last resort options, but I would never encourage secession. I just could never bring it upon myself to be like, let's leave this country because it also offers so much protection. I mean, keep in mind, our ports, our military bases, a lot of our land is still federally owned. We have the shape of California outline on our maps, but it's not like we own all that land. Plus, then you have native populations that have contracts with the federal government, not with the state of California. And so then those become their own nations. And so we're dealing with nations inside nations. We're dealing with extra laws. And so for me, I just could never support secession because it's just so many factors involved that it almost becomes like shooting yourself in the foot because we would lose our military bases. We'd have to then take control of a border that gets an influx of so many people that the federal government tends to usually pay for us. That now we're going to have to take that entire brunt on by ourselves. We're going to have to have more workers for that. We're going to have to do so much, and I just couldn't.
So if we left, we would take control of the borders. Currently, we don't have control over the borders. That's all federal government. And they allow about 2.5 million undocumented immigrants in California. If we were actually patrolling the borders, we'd actually have control over that population and over the visa states, which we have no control over. Additionally, if we left, we would take our equivalent amount of military personnel and people and research bases, which would make us instantaneously the 5th largest military on Earth. Secondly, Canada operates under. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't say that because our federal because the majority of our bases are still on federal lands that the federal government owns. If we then put our flag over it and say we own it, that's war. And that's exactly what happened with Sumter.
Yeah, of course. But I've talked to many conservatives, and what they say is, if you leave, you got to take your share of the debt. So you got to take your share of the debt. And I said, fine. But if we're taking on our debt, can we take our fair share of military equipment? And everybody says yes. And I know that when you bargain, especially when Brexit, that's a bargaining chip. Oh, you don't get any of the bases and any of the troops and the toys. Okay, then we don't take any of the debt. People, when faced with massive amounts of money, seem to be willing to give some military hardware. Additionally, there's also the option that what if California just says, hey, keep the bases, lease them. America has 150 leases around the world with different countries. Why can't they just keep the bases where they are and pay us money to lease them there? And they can do whatever they want.
Again, these are more like what ifs we left.
Sure.
At that point, we can discuss it. But I think the whole issue is secession. Like, do I support it or not? And I don't.
Oh, I know you don't.
Honest, I just don't support secession.
And you never had to.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And so that's all we're doing is we're going, well, what are the issues and what are the things? And certainly the military is an issue. But I also question about how are we able to focus on better things like poverty, healthcare, and energy creation when the Senate's typically Republican. It's likely to go back to Republican. Even with the Dems owning the House, they're really not able to get any progressive legislation in there. And the Supreme Court is now the most conservative it's been in about 50 years. And they're already striking down California laws. So we had a law protecting us from gun violence, and they struck that down. What happens when the Supreme Court starts striking down laws that protect LGBTQIA people in California? Do we say, well, we'll accept the punishment on our people because we still need to stay part of the union, and maybe one day we'll change the law 30 years from now?
Again, I support constitutional amendments that would prevent that, because if it's enshrined in our own constitution, the state has a duty to protect our own values, and if that means that we protect our constitution, then we do that. I wouldn't. What the Supreme Court did with LGBT rights meant that any state that barred LGBT people couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't that if a state allowed LGBT people to get married, they can no longer do it. And so I would say that's more of an issue about whether or not we're willing to constitutionalize a lot of our beliefs. And I think if we truly believe in the things we believe in, we will enshrine them in our Constitution.
The federal court system can strike down anything in the California Constitution. If they strike down a law, there's nothing we can do but live with it. They struck down some of our protections on gun rights. They struck down some of our protections on land rights and on climate change regulation. And they struck down some of our protections on minorities gunned down by police in their own homes. So this is happening in real time. How many more rights do we allow to be taken away from by this Supreme Court that's super conservative like we've never seen in 70 years?
Well, I mean, you stumped me on that. Yeah, you stumped me on that, and I'm not going to BS you because I don't have the answers to everything, but for the most part, I do stay with them.
Oh no. Okay. John Drake is definitely against secession, 100%, and we didn't ask him to be for it. We just wanted to have a conversation, and he engaged. And we deeply appreciate that. Is that fair, John? Okay, wait for him to come back.
I know. Fuck.
It's whoa, John. This is a PG-13 show. Okay, candidate John will be back with us here in a second, and we'll go from there. We just had a conversation with John Drake. He's the second-ranked, or now the top-ranked Democrat in the recall election. We interviewed him for an hour about his campaign, and then we asked him the questions that we like to ask here about what about the idea of California being independent. He said he is not for it, which is his right, and we respect that. He talked about he was afraid that if California left, it would encourage the rest of America to break up. But he agreed that red states hate California and would vote for us to leave, yet they're financially dependent on it. He talked about, well, maybe we could focus on issues here and fix those in California first. instead of focusing on independence. To which I said, well, what if the red states never enact the progressive laws that we want, like on climate change, which is stalled for 15 years, or immigration, which is stalled for 45 years, or the fact that, there's 2 Senate seats per red states and we can't seem to really get anywhere on anything. I mean, they're moving backwards on abortion. That was settled about 50 years ago. And how can we get things done like marijuana reform if we don't have commensurate federal regulation for banking? And California was only able to do so much on climate change because we didn't have federal partners. So how exactly are we going to be able to achieve a lot of these things when we need federal permission in order to enact the laws as we want? And yet we can't get it because we're tied to 35 states that are extreme red and, as John said, don't like us and don't vote for our values and don't seem to want it. John also pointed out that he thought secession was illegal. He conceded that it seems to be at least some precedent for it. He brought up a good point, though. While conservatives may talk about how they hate California, conservative leaders know how much money California gives. They may not actually want a vote of California to go. But he did say that if conservatives voted for us to go, it's okay to go. And if a majority of us wanted to leave, it's our right to go. So we're going to give it a few more minutes to see if he comes back. John is coming back in. Wi-Fi issue. Thank you, Brandon. We know that. We're hanging out. Cast Blaster, good to see Drake on. I have not yet heard from God that he has been able to have several candidates on to express views on hot topics. Yeah. And Cassandra, let me show you the screenshot again. 1 second. Share screen, window. I think it's this one. Yeah, here we go. Let me see. I want to make sure everyone can see that. Yeah. This is the poll that shows John Drake. 1 second here. Hey, John, I'm just showing them the poll again that shows that you're top ranked Democrat. And, here's Larry Elder, Kevin Paffrath, the Democrat. He just trashed the Democratic Party, said he wants to leave. That means he's not a real Democrat. Is he going to get the rest of the Democratic vote? Here's John Cox and Kevin Faulkner. And then here's John Drake, the first Democrat. So here's this fake Democrat. And then now we go to the top of the real Democrats. John leading the pack with Beatty and McGowan. What I liked a lot about this was that John, Beatty, McGowan, Brandon Ross, Kevin Popchak, Patrick Kilpatrick, Joel Ventresca, and Daniel Watts all were in the Yes California debates. Kevin Kiley refused to be part of the debates, and a bunch of people who were part of the Yes California debates did better than him in the polling. John, am I getting this wrong?
Nope, you're 100% right.
So it's almost like the Yes California debates were fair and unbiased and allowed voters to know about candidates in a manner that no one else provided for?
That's correct.
Whoa. Well, we're going to end it there. I really appreciate you coming out. I really appreciate you being willing to discuss these issues. Not trying to put you in a tough spot. We just love having conversations, and we like talking about this. So was I roughly fair on the Cal exit part? Was it okay?
Yeah. You were fair. You were pushing me a lot, and I thank you for it. But I think the way that how we make real progress right now is that we address COVID-19 for how it is. We get Californians unified behind the idea of fixing our state in the aftermath of this pandemic, get businesses back open, bring people together, and just go on from there. That's how we fix our current issues.
I really appreciate it. What other messages do you have for voters and that you'd like to share with them? We got your website up. How would you like to be seen in the last few days leading up to the recall?
I would like to be seen as someone who really cares about the issues that young people are facing. That really wants to see us accomplish the dreams that we were promised. That we can live in a fair and affordable life. That we can live equitably among one another, and that we're not being taken advantage by the ultra elite and the state. That's all I've ever wanted.
It's an inspiration to see people who are young getting into the election. And again, I've loved all the candidates who were immigrants and the people who were young people jumping in. I think you have the right spirit. You're showing us that everybody can run and that it's available for everybody, and to not buy the total trash of you have to be wealthy and elite to be able to run. It's called democracy. It's yours to grasp. You simply have to grab it. And I love the fact that I see people whose society says, well, I don't know if we need to listen to them. They're young. They're naive. They talk funny. And I love seeing people go, I'm a goddamn Californian and it's my right. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for showing that. I can only talk that, but it takes people like you showing us. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody. I hope this wasn't too painful, right, John? This was not painful. This was okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. All
okay,
right. We'll
yeah,
check you
I like
later.
it. Sorry, I feel like a frozen.
All good.
All right.
All good. All right. Thanks, brother. Okay. Well, that's it for this. We're going to offer this to all of the other candidates. I know this went on long. I know it was unstructured. This was impromptu. We will, to be fair, offer this to all of the candidates. They can come on the show. We will spend the first half of the show talking about what they would like to say on their campaign, and then we will spend an equal amount of time asking them the tough questions about independence. And I think when you can see that there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of assumptions, and there's a lot of people saying that secession is a radical, crazy idea, and they're not aware of many of the facts of how things actually work. And if you don't like secession, that's fine. What we've said at Yes California is it's okay to have a conversation about that. Candidate Drake backed us up on that. And we think it's okay for people to be informed and to debate. And we like pointing out misinformation. We didn't do anything wrong. We provided facts. And every time we bring someone on and they go, I'm dead set against this. Well, did you know about this? No. 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 And then they backtrack, well, I'm just against it. That means we won the debate. And that's why we've never quit. And that's why I'm doing this 10 years in. Because no one ever beats us at debate. And all we need is a fair chance, and we will win this.